At 65 years old, she had survived 8 combat deployments, eliminated 78 enemy combatants, and earned the respect of every special operations team she'd worked with. But nothing prepared her for the moment a 3-star general would raise his hand and strike her across the face in front of the entire Pentagon brass, calling her a fraud. What happened next would expose decades of institutional bias and prove that the most dangerous weapon isn't always a rifle. Sometimes it's a truth, spoken with unflinching courage. The Pentagon's conference room 3B buzzed with tension on that February morning in 2019. Dark with paneling absorbed the hushed conversations of assembled generals and colonels, while flags representing every military branch stood at attention along the walls. The massive oak table could seat 30, but today it felt crowded with egos and assumptions. Master Sergeant Catherine Reynolds stood near the back wall, her Marine Corps dress blues immaculate despite her 65 years. Every ribbon and medal sat precisely positioned, a lifetime of service displayed across her chest. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and though time had etched lines around her sharp brown eyes, they still held the intense focus that had made her one of the deadliest snipers in Marine Corps history. Cat had been summoned without explanation, told only that her presence was required for a briefing on female integration into combat roles. The whole situation felt wrong. After 3 decades in the Marines, she developed instincts that kept her alive in places like Fallujah, Helmand Province, and Raqqa. Those same instincts were screaming warnings now. At the head of the table sat Lieutenant General Marcus Brennan, a 3-star Marine legend in his late 50s. His iron-gray hair, granite jaw, and absolute certainty radiated the kind of old-school authority that brooked no disagreement. He'd commanded Marines in both Iraq wars and held firm opinions about women in combat, opinions that hadn't evolved with the times. The briefing had droned on for 20 minutes when Brennan suddenly looked up from his papers, his gaze locking onto Cat with an intensity that made junior officers shift uncomfortably. Master Sergeant Reynolds, his voice cut through the room like a blade, stepped forward. Cat moved with the precise bearing of 3 decades in uniform, coming to attention before the assembled brass. She fixed her eyes on the wall above Brennan's head and waited. Brennan lifted a document, scanning it with obvious skepticism. Your record indicates you served as a scout sniper for over 20 years, with 8 deployments in support of special operations. Correct. Yes, sir. That is correct. And according to this, he continued, his tone dripping with disbelief, you have 78 confirmed kills. That would make you the most lethal female Marine in Corps history. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Is that number accurate? The room held its breath. Cat felt every eye turned toward her, measuring, judging, doubting. Yes, sir. 78 confirmed kills, all documented and verified according to standard protocols. A murmur rippled through the assembled officers. Brennan's expression hardened as he stood, his 6'3" frame looming over Cat's smaller stature. 78 confirmed kills, he repeated slowly. That's more than most infantry platoons see in an entire deployment. That's more than many special operations snipers achieve in full careers. And you expect us to believe that you, a woman now 65 years old, somehow accumulated that kill count. Cat maintained her composure. Yes, sir. I was attached to Tier 1 Special Operations units, conducting direct action missions in extremely hostile environments. The operational tempo and target-rich environments resulted in frequent enemy engagements. Brennan stepped closer, invading her space in a transparent attempt at intimidation. Or maybe you're inflating your numbers, making yourself look good for your retirement, being a poster girl for women in combat. Maybe you're taking credit for kills made by the men around you. The accusation struck at the core of everything Cat had spent 3 decades proving. She felt anger surge, but locked it down with iron discipline. Sir, every kill is verified by my spotter and the special operations teams I supported. Every engagement is documented in classified after-action reports. I would never falsify my record. Major General Sarah Chun, one of the few women in the room, spoke up from her seat. General Brennan, Master Sergeant Reynolds' record has been thoroughly vetted. The numbers are legitimate. Perhaps we should discuss what her experiences can teach us. This is exactly what I've been warning about. Brennan's voice rose as he turned to address the room. We put women in combat roles, and suddenly we have people claiming numbers that defy belief, inflating records, turning war into some competition. It's dishonest, it's dangerous, and it undermines everyone who serves. He spun back to face Kat. What happened next would be replayed on news channels for months. General Brennan raised his right hand and slapped Kat hard across the face. The crack of impact echoed in the suddenly silent room. Kat's head snapped sideways, pain blooming across her cheek as his ring split the skin. That's for being a lying bitch, Brennan said coldly. For inflating your kill count, for dishonoring the Marine Corps, and for thinking you could deceive us with your fabricated record. Gasps erupted around the room. Officers jumped to their feet. General Chen's face went pale. Everyone recognized they just witnessed a court-martial offense, assault on a subordinate, conduct unbecoming an officer, committed by a 3-star general in front of dozens of witnesses. Kat slowly turned her head back to center, blood trickling down her cheek. She maintained perfect military bearing despite the burning pain, despite the humiliation, despite the injustice. When she spoke, her voice was steady and controlled. Permission to respond, sir? Brennan, perhaps realizing his mistake, but too committed to retreat, waved dismissively. Go ahead, Master Sergeant. Give us your excuses. Kat took a measured breath. When she spoke, every word carried the weight of 3 decades of combat experience and the quiet fury of a warrior who'd been unjustly attacked. Sir, I don't need to inflate my kill count. Every number I cited is documented and verified. But if you want to question my integrity, let me be very clear about what those numbers represent. She paused, and despite being a senior enlisted Marine addressing a room of generals, she commanded absolute attention. 78 confirmed kills. Each one a human being who died because I was better at my job than they were at theirs. Each one documented with grid coordinates, timestamps, witness statements, and after-action reports sitting in classified files you could review if you bothered to check instead of making assumptions based on my age and gender. Her voice remained calm but gained intensity. Target number 1 was a Taliban commander coordinating IED attacks that killed 3 Marines a week before I eliminated him. Target number 23 was an ISIS sniper who'd already killed 2 American soldiers before I tracked him to his hide and put a round through his chest from 900 meters. Target number 56 was a machine gunner preventing an entire SEAL team from completing their extraction. I neutralized the threat in under 4 seconds. Kat's eyes never left Brennan's face. I don't share those numbers to brag, sir. I share them because they represent Americans who came home alive, because I was exceptional at my job, Marines who didn't die in ambushes, special operators who completed their missions, lives saved because I spent 3 decades perfecting my craft. The room was absolutely silent. So when you call me a fraud and strike me for telling the truth, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting every person I worked with, every mission I supported, and every American service member alive today, because I was there doing my job at the highest level possible. She wasn't finished. And, sir, with all due respect, hitting me doesn't change the facts. It doesn't make my record any less real. All it demonstrates is that you're more comfortable using violence against a subordinate than accepting documentation that challenges your assumptions about what a 65-year-old woman is capable of. That says everything about you and nothing about me. General Chen stood, her face flushed with anger. General Brennan, you are out of line. That was assault witnessed by everyone here. Apologize immediately and excuse yourself from this briefing. But Kat raised her hand slightly, continuing to address Brennan directly. You want to know why my kill count is so high? It's not fabrication. It's because Special Operations Unit specifically requested me, by name, because I was exceptional. It's because I operated in the most dangerous combat zones where enemy contact was a daily occurrence, not a rare event. It's because I spent 3 decades studying ballistics, wind effects, stalking techniques, and human behavior until I could put a round on target distances that would make most Marines struggle. She gestured to her bleeding face. And it's because I had something to prove every single day of my career. I had to be better than the men around me because people like you were waiting for me to fail, ready to claim that women didn't belong in combat. prepared to use any mistake as evidence that female integration was a failure. So I made myself into the best sniper I could possibly be. Not just good enough, exceptional. Because anything less would have been used as ammunition against every woman trying to serve. Brennan's face had shifted from anger to something approaching uncertainty as the magnitude of his error became clear. Kat pressed forward, her voice taking a harder edge. I've been called weak. I've been told I don't belong. I've been questioned and doubted, and had to prove myself repeatedly in ways male Marines never face. But I've never been called a liar about my service record, and I've never been assaulted by a superior officer for telling the truth. Congratulations, General. You've set a new low. General Chin stepped between them. Master Sergeant Reynolds, please step outside and have medical attend to your face. General Brennan, you are relieved from this briefing. We'll be addressing your conduct with the Commandant immediately. But Kat had one final statement to deliver. Words that will be quoted for years to come. Sir, the Navy SEALs I work with taught me something valuable. They taught me that respect isn't given based on rank or gender or age. It's earned through performance under pressure, through accomplishing a mission, through having your teammates' backs when things get dangerous. And they taught me that when someone disrespects you, the best response isn't violence or insults. It's simply continuing to perform at a level that makes their disrespect look foolish in comparison. She came to attention and rendered a perfect salute despite the blood on her face. Thank you for the reminder, sir. You've shown me why I work so hard to be exceptional, because people like you are waiting for any excuse to tear down women who dare to excel in roles you don't think we should fill. Kat executed a flawless about-face and marched from the conference room, leaving behind a room full of stunned officers and one general whose career had just ended. The aftermath came swiftly. 3 officers had recorded the briefing on their phones, a common practice for Pentagon meetings. By day's end, those videos reached the Inspector General, the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and multiple news organizations. Within 48 hours, the story exploded nationwide. Headlines screamed, Marine General slapped 65-year-old female sniper after questioning her combat record, and 3-star general faces charges after assaulting veteran Marine. The videos went viral. Millions watched Kat's calm, controlled response to being struck and insulted. Public reaction overwhelmingly supported her, with veterans groups, women's organizations, and military reform advocates all condemning Brennan's actions. General Brennan was immediately suspended and investigated for assault, conduct unbecoming an officer, and multiple violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. His decades-long career ended in that conference room, destroyed by his own biases and actions. The Marine Corps conducted a thorough review of Kat's service record. Investigators spent weeks examining classified reports and interviewing special operations personnel she'd worked with. Their conclusion was unambiguous. Kat's 78 confirmed kills were all legitimate, verified, and if anything, represented a conservative count. The special operations community quietly rallied around her. A retired SEAL commander gave an interview. Master Sergeant Reynolds was requested by name for multiple operations because she was simply the best sniper available. Period. Gender didn't matter. Age didn't matter. What mattered was her ability to put rounds on target at extreme distances and stay calm under pressure. She saved lives and accomplished missions at a level that would be exceptional for anyone. Brennan's court-martial was swift. He was found guilty, reduced in rank, forfeited his pension, and received a dishonorable discharge. The presiding judge noted that his actions represented not just a lapse in judgment, but a fundamental failure of character and leadership that cannot be overlooked regardless of prior service. Kat retired from the Marines shortly after at 65, with full honors. She'd accomplished everything she set out to do and more. The incident had made her famous, but it also made continuing service difficult under constant scrutiny. She was recruited by elite sniper schools, private contractors, and security firms. She chose to become an instructor at a premier tactical training facility in Arizona, teaching military and law enforcement personnel advanced precision shooting techniques. The work was fulfilling and paid well. Kat also became an advocate for female veterans and military culture reform. She testified before Congress, consulted with the Department of Defense, and spoke at military installations about judging people on performance rather than stereotypes. She remained nonpartisan and practical, giving her credibility across different constituencies. The scar on her face healed but remained visible. She refused cosmetic correction. "It's a reminder," she told people, "not of being hit, but of standing up for myself and every woman who's had their service questioned because of their gender. Some scars are worth keeping." Kat wrote a best-selling memoir titled Confirmed, 78 Truths About Combat, Courage, and Character. She dedicated it to all female service members who paved the way before her and those who would come after. The incident sparked broader military conversations about leadership bias and evidence-based decision-making. The Marine Corps implemented new training on unconscious bias, updated equal opportunity policies, and created better reporting mechanisms. Progress was made. 10 years later, Kat had built a successful post-military career and become one of America's most recognized female veterans. She'd married, had grandchildren, and found balance between public advocacy and private life. She occasionally thought about that day in the Pentagon, about standing before those generals and being struck for telling the truth. She thought about her decision to respond with words rather than emotion, to turn humiliation into empowerment. That choice had exposed biases that needed confronting and contributed to meaningful change. 15 years after the incident, Kat was invited back to the Pentagon for a ceremony honoring female combat veterans. She walked past Conference Room 3B on her way, pausing to remember how far things had come. The Commandant of the Marine Corps presented her with special recognition for her service and contributions to military culture change. Master Sergeant Reynolds stood up when it would have been easier to stay silent, he said. She told the truth when others wanted her to accept lies. She maintained dignity and professionalism when facing unjust treatment. The Marine Corps is better because of her example. Kat's response was characteristically humble. "I didn't do anything special. I just did my job and refused to let anyone diminish that." Every female Marine in combat does the same thing daily, proving capabilities through performance rather than words. I'm honored to serve alongside them, and grateful the path is easier for those who follow. As she left the Pentagon that day, Kat reflected on the journey from that confrontation to this moment of recognition. It had been a long road, but she'd shown that responding to injustice with truth and dignity was more powerful than anger or violence. She'd proven that documentation and evidence mattered more than assumptions, and she demonstrated that standing up for yourself, even against overwhelming power imbalances, could create change that extended far beyond the immediate situation. Kat's story became part of military history, taught to future generations as an example of both leadership failure and individual courage. General Brennan's name became synonymous with biased, outdated thinking that had no place in modern military leadership. Kat's response became a template for handling unjust treatment with professionalism and effectiveness. When asked what she wanted people to take from her story, Kat's answer was direct. "I want people to understand that capability has nothing to do with gender or age. That documentation and evidence matter more than assumptions. That standing up for yourself is always right, even when it's difficult. I want female service members to know their contributions matter and their service is valuable. And I want leaders at all levels to understand that their biases have consequences, that they must judge people on performance, not stereotypes, and use their power justly." The moral of the story: Catherine Reynolds' story teaches us that truth defended with dignity is more powerful than any weapon. When faced with injustice, she chose words over violence, evidence over emotion, and professionalism over revenge. Her response transformed a moment of humiliation into a catalyst for institutional change. The deeper lesson is this: your worth is not determined by others' inability to recognize it. Kat didn't need General Brennan's validation because she had documentation, witnesses, and a lifetime performance that spoke louder than his assumptions. When someone in power challenges your integrity, the most devastating response is simply continuing to excel at a level that makes their skepticism look foolish. Finally, Kat's story reminds us that standing up for yourself serves everyone who comes after you. By refusing to be diminished, she didn't just defend her own record. She opened doors for countless women who would follow. Sometimes the battles we fight for ourselves become the victories that liberate others. In the end, capability, character, and courage have no gender and no age limit. The only limits are the ones we accept from those two blinded by their own biases to see the truth standing right in front of them.